To talk about his run for St. Louis County Prosecutor. Give it up for Wesley Bell, everybody. How you doing, brother?
I'm good. I'm
good. Thank you so much for being here, man.
My pleasure.
Have a seat. Have a seat. Oh, I see what's going on here. I like.
And I brought gifts and everything.
You brought little buttons and everything, man. I like this. So tell me. I know there's a lot of people out there, I'm sure, for just the layman terms, like what exactly is a St. Louis County Prosecutor?
So the prosecutor, and that's a good question, because what I start realizing is a lot of people weren't aware of exactly what the prosecutor's role is. And the prosecutor actually decides what gets charged when we're talking to St. Louis County, felonies and misdemeanors. So if there's a violent crime, or it could be even as low as a drug possession crime, well then the local police department will file warrants with the St. Louis County Prosecutor, and the St. Louis County Prosecutor will decide if that case gets filed, what's getting filed, and starts that process.
Oh, okay. So are you ever in trial, like ever in court when it comes to this kind of stuff? So, okay. Yeah. So this is a pretty busy time. This would be a very busy title or position for you.
Yeah, there's about 55 attorneys that work in that office. And so this is the office that again, prosecutes every felony and misdemeanor in St. Louis County.
Wow.
So from Chesterfield all the way out to North County, South County.
Wow.
And everything in between.
Wow. And so how long is that position for? Like when you're in office, how long is that position in office for?
So it's an elected position, and it's a 4-year term.
4-year term. So
yes.
McCullough
is the opponent.
McCullough is the opponent.
Correct.
Because he's trying to rerun. He's trying to run
he's
again.
The current prosecutor.
Okay.
And you know, it's usually taboo. You don't make me say my opponent's name, but because I love this show, so
I appreciate it.
I'll make the exception. But yeah, Bob McCullough is the person. He's been in there for close to 30 years.
Wow, he's had that position for a long time.
He's had that position for a long time, and I think that I think everyone sees across this county that it's time for a change.
Okay, so when you say that, what do you mean by that? It's a time for a change. Like, what kind of change would you be bringing into the office? You know, what differences would you be making in comparison to what McCullough has already been doing?
Well, I think there's a stark difference, a clear difference in our approach. And when we look at issues of mass incarceration, when we look at issues of criminal justice reform that are needed, and I think Democrats, progressives, but even Republicans understand this. Well, in St. Louis County, we've had the same person at the helm. And so one of the things that I want to do is I want to expand the programs that are going to decrease the number of people that are going to prison. And we're talking particularly nonviolent offenders. I mean, if you start committing violent offenses, you got to be held accountable. We know that. But there's so many people that we can reach before they get to the violent offenses, that we can avoid them becoming violent offenders. But then we can also help them if they have drug problems. Let's expand the use of those drug treatment programs, mental health issues. There's so many things that we can do from that office that will bring about change and help people.
Now, I don't, so I understand like that I don't know everything, like politically about politics and how things run and whatnot. But aren't these programs already in motion already?
Oh,
or are these like programs that are just kind of brand new endeavors that you're trying to have installed?
A little bit of both. And what I mean by that is that drug treatment programs, mental health programs, those aren't new. But prosecutors have what's called discretion. Prosecutors can, and I like to use this anecdote. As a young attorney, like every young attorney, I want to be a judge. Right. Well, I got the honor to serve as a judge. And
congratulations, brother.
Well, thank you.
That's big. And you young though. You look hella young. I'm just gonna say that. Real talk.
40. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, shoot.
He is.
All right.
I already like this show.
No, you. Oh man.
Even more.
Hey man. I'm here to just butter you up, like that scone.
Like that scone. drip.
Which I'm just pointing out. I didn't get any, but that's cool.
Oh, we got one right there for you, brother.
It's cool. It's all right.
Do we have one available?
But like I was saying though, I wanted to make an impact and help change the criminal justice system, and I thought, hey, Let's if I get the honor of being a judge, I can do that. It didn't take me long to realize that once I became a judge, the biggest impact comes from the prosecutor's office. Because judges, when a case comes before them, they have to stay within the confines of the law. Prosecutors have what's called discretion. Prosecutors, we can decide, and I serve as a prosecutor now, is that we can decide not to prosecute the case. We can decide that, hey, if you complete this drug treatment program, we won't charge you. And so where we are now is that there is a drug court program in St. Louis County. But out of 6,000 cases that were filed last year, there are only 75 people in the drug court program. And the sole gatekeeper for who gets into the drug treatment program is the prosecutor's office. There's not a clear commitment to these kind of programs, and not only do they make us safer, because when we get people here, before they progress to the violent crimes, we drastically decrease the likelihood that they'll reoffend.
Yeah.
And so when we get them those programs, it keeps us safer. It saves us money because it saves $10,000 to $15,000 per individual over incarceration to give these kind of programs. But it also helps people, and it saves lives when we look at the opioid epidemics, heroin, which has been plaguing our communities for years.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I guess what's the next step then? I mean, even so, once you get elected, once you get into office, how long is the process to get these programs off the ground?
So,
because you hear about a lot of things where it's a bunch of red tape, it's a bunch of stuff that we got to go through, all these what's the word? Procedures that have to be done to get just one thing off the ground. And then when it finally gets off the ground, it's 4 years later and it's already, you know what I mean? You're already out of office kind of thing. You see what I'm saying? Or you're already up for re-election. So I'm wondering, how long does it take for a program or a movement like this to happen?
So I'll say this. So as you may know, I serve on the Ferguson City Council. So I'm a city councilman there. I was elected in 2015, about 9 months or so after Michael Brown was killed. And one thing that I'm really proud of is I ran on pushing community policing, court reforms, and we have really moved the ball forward in those particular areas. Now, moving the ball forward required a lot of work because I needed 3 other votes as a council person. Everything's run by majority. Well, I'm going to compare that to the prosecutor's office. The prosecutor's office, there's not a board of prosecutors. If I'm fortunate to be elected on August 7th, we'll make sure people know about that. These are things that I can implement, and I have the discretion to do, and I will implement those programs. And again, we have programs like that in place, but they are so sorely underutilized because the current prosecutor is not committed to them. Again, when we talk about 6,000 cases, only 75 people are in the drug treatment program, thousands of deaths by drugs, but there's 75 people. And I'm going to take a step further. 1 in 5 Americans are dealing with mental health issues. 50 to 60% of the people who come in contact with the criminal justice system are in need of some mental health treatment. There's a mental health docket. There are 12 people on that docket. And guess who is the sole gatekeeper for who gets in those programs? You want to take a guess? County Prosecutor's Office.
Wow.
There's not a commitment to these things. So these things that I can implement, and I will implement and increase and expand day one.
Wow. Okay, so when you say 75 are in these programs, what is it that's not being said? Are these options not being given to the 6,000 people that are being
That's exactly what it is.
Incarcerated?
That is exactly what it is. There's never been a clear commitment. And I would challenge people, if you know an attorney, if you know someone who works in the criminal justice system, ask them. This isn't a secret. It's just that most people who are not plugged into the legal system know. The prosecutor has sole discretion to do 2 different things. They can do court-led drug treatment programs, which is what they do now, which is only 75 people. They basically say, we'll let a certain number of people in, we'll let the courts handle it from there. But then you can also do what are called prosecution-led drug treatment programs. I don't need the court. We can say, look, these are people, nonviolent offenders, who just need help. They have an addiction, they need treatment. We're going to set up our own programs which help them avoid the criminal justice system and avoid convictions, help them get job readiness programs, help them get mental health program treatment, drug treatment, whatever they need, because they're going to be more productive. They're less likely to reoffend. That keeps us all safer.
Right.
And it helps them.
Absolutely. So then what about the people who are actually already incarcerated right now, that are already in prison doing their time? Would these opportunities be given to them as well, or is it just kind of like you just start from zero with the people who are coming in, who are becoming incarcerated?
I don't think you can attack any problem without looking at it holistically and comprehensively. I serve on the board for the Soul Fisher Ministries, which is a reentry program which helps previously incarcerated offenders transition back into the community. Mm-hmm. What we're doing, what St. Louis County is doing at the moment is we are sending people out into the community after being incarcerated with little or no services, because many of these reentry programs are sorely underfunded. And so we have to help people and give them the tools that they need so that they don't go back to the life of crime or what have you.
Right.
They can't get jobs, if they can't get housing. Well, we know the recidivism rates are like 75%, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that we don't offer a lot of these kind of services. So I think on the front end, we're going to try and help people, when appropriate, avoid the criminal justice system and avoid jail, because we know jail is not the best place to rehabilitate people. We know that.
Right.
So we're going to help them, in particularly our nonviolent offenders. We're going to help them avoid avoid jail time when appropriate. Help them get job readiness skills and programs, help them get drug treatment, and on the way out and in, we're going to do more of an emphasis on those kind of programs, those same kind of programs that these offenders, who will soon be previously incarcerated offenders, need, to give them the tools in the toolbox that they need to be productive citizens, help themselves, their families, keeps us all safe.
Yeah.
It's a win-win across the board.
Sounds like a win-win across the board for sure. Wow. Okay, that's great. So how can people, like, I know that the people can go out and vote.
Yes.
Right? So where can they vote?
So you can go on, if you're a St. Louis County resident, there's another side to this too. And I got you this
look,
pen.
His
so
face is on it. Look at that.
So I just want to point out, not only did I not get the food, I was sitting right here
Wow.
watching this delicious food.
Wow.
And this great show. I give you the pen, you set it to the side. I'm just saying.
Here we go. Here we go.
I'm joking. But yeah,
no, man.
I appreciate
it. I just don't, I'm worried about, like, pricking myself.
That is a nice shirt. I'll give you that. But to your question, August 7th is the primary. There we go. There is no Republican filed, so this is the election. If we need to make people aware, especially all across the county, North County, St. Louis County, West County, Mid County. We need to get people out to the polls to vote, and that's August 7th. And so you can get on our website, voteweslybell.com, our Facebook page, which is Wesley Bell for St. Louis County Prosecutor. But yeah, we need people to get out and vote. And again, whoever you vote for and whatever race you're voting for, if you don't vote, you get ignored.
Yeah.
And so that's got to be the habit. That's got to be a change in the culture to emphasize voting and exercising your rights, to being involved in the political system.
Absolutely. So it's definitely get your voice heard. All right. Get out and vote August 7th.
Ring
Definitely.
the bell. That's what we're telling people.
Ring that bell. Ring my bell. Ring his bell. All right. One question, though. I have one other question before we go. When it comes to the police, stuff like that, there's a lot of police brutality that's been going around. There's a lot of negative things in regards to when we think of the police nowadays. When the black community thinks of the police nowadays, we look at it in a very negative context. Is there any way or process that you have in mind in maybe bringing that to spinning it on its head and pointing it towards more a positive direction?
Well, and I am a big advocate for community policing. And why I'm such an advocate of it is, one, not only does the research and case studies that we already have across the country show that it's the most effective type of policing, but also just on a guttural level, I think we understand that it's hard to hate people you know. And so when law enforcement officers make a point to get out into the community, get to know people, psychologically, they're going to police a community differently that they feel a part of.
Right.
And I, as a resident, am going to approach that situation with an officer differently when I feel that they are a part of my community.
Absolutely.
You know, I like to say this all the time. When we look at Ferguson, had one thing that Ferguson wasn't doing pre-2014 was community policing. If Darren Wilson would have been out into the community, getting to know people, talking to Michael Brown,
Yeah.
that situation would have been handled differently.
Different story.
And it would
Different outcome.
different outcome.
It's like, hey, Mike, sup?
Exactly. You know, I grew up
You know?
in North County. We lived in countryside apartments, which
Right.
some people know about. There was some issues in countryside
Yeah.
apartments, but I remember we had security guards, but they actually got to know us. And I remember, like, I'm going off into a tangent, but
It's okay.
when we were younger, the big kids at night would chase the little kids. Now, they wouldn't hurt us, you know, little frogs on the legs,
Right,
stuff
right.
like that. And I remember being chased by one of the little kids, but the bigger kids, I'm sorry. And so the bunch of us got caught. They were giving us our little frogs. And then the security guard came. So naturally, like young kids, we all run. And I remember the security guard. I don't remember his name now. But he was like, James, Wesley, Toby. He knew us, so we're running,
Right.
and he called our name. We just,
Man, we got caught.
and we just went in
It's
and
like
walked
he
back.
go to tell my mama anyway. I'm
right.
just gonna stop, son.
And, you know, but he talked to us. He's like, look, guys, I know what you guys are doing, and
Right.
I know you the kids are getting the worst end of it, but you got to be careful on how that's looking to other people. And people were calling the police, and if we don't know what's going on, we think it's a fight, we could arrest you. But he talked to us. He didn't arrest us. He talked to us. That's community policing. And so we got to expand that type of policing. And one thing that I do is I work with a lot of local enforcement officers, and I'd love to have you guys. We host a police simulator, which is kind of a virtual video game that officers train on.
Wow,
And we
okay.
host groups free of charge from the community where they get to interact with officers. They get to do the simulator, which is so fun. So we've had work groups, Ferguson Florison, superintendent and his leadership team. I coach a mock trial in junior high, Ferguson Middle. We've had them. We've had sororities, fraternities. It's a great time, but it's about that community policing because now they get to see policing from the other side. They get to interact with an officer in a fun setting. Those are the kinds of things that are going to be the building blocks to healing our community when it comes to these issues.
That's what's up. So when you're saying, like, when you do these events and the video games and all that stuff, the sorority version, is it like a panty raid type of thing?
It is not.
I had to ask. I had to go there. No, I'm just
Completely
playing.
inappropriate, sir.
Completely inappropriate.
Funny, but inappropriate.
Inappropriate. Sorry. That was me that said it, not him. But anyway, everybody, Wesley Bell, definitely thank you so much, man. You're amazing.
Thanks for
Thank you,
having
man.
me.